It's been 7 days since our reporter Rohit Sharma was attacked, was assaulted by a group of Congress members. And yet 7 days on, there's not been a single word of condemnation, not a single word of apology from the Congress leadership, from Rahul Gandhi. And that's what we're focusing on India Today. Today you've had the Prime Minister speaking out on this issue, condemning the Congress for the attack on Rohit Sharma. And joining me now here on India Today is Rohit Sharma, joining us live from Washington, D.C. Rohit, we want to hear from you firsthand on what exactly happened on September 7th in Dallas. First of all, thank you very much for speaking out on that ordeal, on what happened 7 days ago. Can you just recount that for us, for our viewers?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Akshita. So, look, as I wrote in the story that I did, I think I'll just go back to last Saturday. I was in Dallas covering Mr. Gandhi's visit. I had arranged an interview with Mr. Petroda. We were going to interview that evening. And so I went to the hotel. I think everything was fine. There were a lot of people in his room. He recognized me. We shook hands and we did the interview. During the interview, one of the questions I asked was about what kind of issues would be raised by Mr. Gandhi during his anticipated meetings with the U.S. politicians, which Mr. Petroda was asking, and then I followed up about the minorities and Hindus getting killed in Bangladesh, and would that be one of the conversations he will have with the U.S. lawmakers? Mr. Petroda answered that question, and he almost completed the answer. And I think if I recollect properly, he said something to the effect of it would be up to Mr. Gandhi and the lawmakers to decide what's relevant and what they want to talk about. But then somebody in that room then started yelling that this is a controversial question. Others joined in, and suddenly there was an escalation, which somebody said, "Band karo and end this interview," which again was, I think, uncalled for. I think even Mr. Petroda didn't think that way. At least that's my understanding. I think Mr. Petroda wanted to complete his answer. But these were members who thought that this is not the right question. And then Mr. Petroda had to, and I knew for a fact that he had to go to the airport to receive Mr. Gandhi. So he was doing it right before that. So he was then, reminded that he's got to go. And so they told him to leave the room. And so the interview kind of abruptly ended there. And then I think that's when the tussle started about deleting the interview, grabbing the phone, and what I've written down about essentially, trying to use my Face ID and making sure that the interview is deleted from my photos library, from my recently deleted items folder. There were attempts made to see if the interview had actually synced up with iCloud. And if it was so, then they wanted to get to that and also delete that. And so it was a very harrowing experience. Never experienced that.
I'm sure. And Rohit, when they took your phone, what exactly did they do? They deleted all the evidence, of course, of what happened. They deleted the interview as well completely. And to do that, if you could describe what played out then, because that's exactly when they restrained you, essentially.
Yeah, I had one person, and it happened so fast that one person who basically made me sit down and on a chair, and there was one person on I think either side of me, and just restrained sitting down while they were fiddling with my phone and trying to and I think in all this thing, I think there were people who were concerned about that this was probably going to go out before Mr. Gandhi landed, and I think that was their concern. So they were trying to do it, and they obviously needed my Face ID because I think when they took the phone, somebody must have locked it. Yeah. So there was one attempt to unlock it, and then the phone was given back to me to unlock it, and I said, "Well, let's not delete this." I was trying to reason with them, but they did not listen. And once the phone was unlocked, they went ahead and deleted stuff, and it felt very, as I said, I just felt like that that probably was uncalled for, especially when Mr. Petroda and I have agreed to doing the interview. Mr. Petroda was giving all the answers. I've interviewed Mr. Petroda in the past, so I do not know, who decided to do that, but it was a very, very chaotic 20, 30 minutes in that room.
I can imagine how traumatic that is. There's been no apology from the Congress, but I apologize that you had to go through something like that, Rohit. Was Mr. Pitroda in the room? Did he see the confrontation playing out? Did he see that initially at least there was an objection to this interview being filmed and them requesting you to delete it? Did he intervene in any way?
Well, it happened in front of Mr. Pitroda when somebody said this is a controversial question. So I think he would know that um, that whoever assembled in that room, were taking objection and were going straight up to for my phone and the camera. So yes, Mr. Pitroda must be aware
I'm not
of
sure,
my
I'm not
content.
sure if you've seen the interview that where he spoke to us last night, and he said essentially that he wasn't in the room, that he had no idea that any of this had happened, that he had no idea that there was even a problem or an objection to that interview.
Well, I can't speak for Mr. Pitroda,
Of
right?
course.
I mean, but if my memory serves me well, yeah, he definitely was in the room when it all started. Um, Mr. Pitroda may have not been known, or may have not known about other stuff that followed, because as I said, he was on his way to the airport, but he definitely was aware that people in the room wanted to delete the interview.
Did you recognize any of these people, Rohit? In your article, you've spoken about 30 people being in the room. Did you recognize
Yeah,
any of
it's
them,
tough.
particularly the ones who targeted you in that manner?
No, you know what? If I were to ever see them again, maybe, but I honestly don't. I don't remember. There were a few names that were flying, and I cannot, just because again, I was so stunned by what was happening around me. I can't remember anybody's particular name, and I think it would be, doing a disservice just calling out a wrong name. So I don't want to do that. But uh, it's um, it's very again, I don't think any reporter has should go through this. First things first. And when you are in that moment, I think my first instinct was to make sure nothing gets harmed, and no one gets harmed, and that somehow I'm able to retrieve the interview and convince them that it isn't as bad as they think it is. But obviously, I wasn't listened to.
And they weren't willing to listen clearly. Has anyone from the Congress, Rohit, reached out to you? We've tried to reach out for a comment. We've not received any so far. Have they attempted to reach out to you, at least kind of clarify what happened, apologize perhaps?
No, you know what? I've gotten a lot of calls, and a lot of calls from unknown numbers, and I have not picked up a lot of phone calls because I do not know who's calling, and so there could have been an attempt. I honestly can't speak, but nobody's called or texted. I could say nobody's texted me to say, hey, they're from the Congress and they want to talk. They could have made calls, which again, as I said, I haven't picked up a lot of phone calls in the last 12 hours or so. So yeah.
As far as you know, no, there's been no outreach whatsoever from the Congress.
Let's say that again, Akshita.
Just to confirm that as far as you know, as far as your knowledge goes, there hasn't been any sort of, outreach from the Congress.
There hasn't been any, there have been unknown phone calls, but there hasn't been any text message directly identifying who they are and what they want to talk about.
Just to understand, Rohit, what happened after the incident? Did you try to reach out to someone from the Congress? Did you try to reach out to Mr. Pitroda himself? And what happened then?
I dropped him a message. I dropped Mr. Pitroda a message, and letting him know that this is what happened. And I haven't seen a response on that. So I reached out to Mr. Pitroda, letting him know, hey, this is what happened. And again, I think once Mr. Gandhi landed, I'm assuming he was busy with Mr. Gandhi, so we couldn't connect. And then I had to go to Pennsylvania for the debate. So yeah.
Okay, Mr. Pitroda speaking to us last night did assure that there would be action. We haven't seen it just yet. But really coming back to what happened and the issue that many men in the room raised was the question that you asked, which was essentially about whether Rahul Gandhi would address, the plight of minority Hindus in Bangladesh. Ironically enough, that question was asked later on during the course of his trip in America, and he answered it with no problem. So these were essentially congressmen who seemingly panicked for no reason.
I would agree with that. I think even Mr. Pitroda, when I asked him that question, he gave a good answer. I think, in my opinion, I mean, had they listened to what Mr. Pitroda had said, I don't think there would have been an issue. I think people are just overprotective, and I can't speak to why. And again, as you said, the similar question was asked at the press club, which Mr. Gandhi himself responded to, and it's a surprising, thing that even Indian National Congress tweeted that answer. So it kind of is, beyond me as to why people were thinking what they thought, and they thought that to delete the interview was the best thing ever.
Ideally, in such a situation where you have Congress members seemingly reacting out of panic and trying to hush down the reporter, there should have immediately been some communication from the Congress condemning what happened, perhaps apologizing to you, Rohit. We haven't 7 days on seen any of that. Thank you, Rohit, for speaking out. And again, I know there's been no sort of apology from Congress, but I apologize for what you had to go through and endure that day. We spoke to Mr. Pitroda last night. He's promised action. So we assure everyone watching right now that we will follow up and ensure that the Congress answers for what exactly happened that day with Rohit. Thank you, Rohit. I appreciate you taking the time out and joining us here on India Today and sharing your ordeal once again.